Steve.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. This show is called The Pastor Has Left the Building.
It's my pleasure.
And particularly thank you because we've never even met before today. Maybe. Actually, you said I might have actually been at a home inspection?
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we might have met, but who knows? But this is daring of you. You don't know this
Thank
guy
you.
and getting in his truck.
That's right. Who knows where this is going to go?
Exactly. As we're pulling out of the parking lot here, why don't you go ahead and tell me who you are and where you currently minister?
Yeah, Steve Hawley. Married to the same woman for 27 years. 3 kids, 2 grandkids. Minister at Faith Assembly of God in Hyannis on Bierce's Way.
Wonderful. And what's your main responsibilities there as the minister?
Yeah, main responsibility is just the lead pastor, oversee everything from soup to nuts,
Okay, everything.
Everything.
Preaching most every Sunday?
Yes, I'm trying to actually change that, but most Sundays it's me in the pulpit.
Okay. And I noticed there's a school attached to this church?
There is. We have a preschool from somewhere around 2.5 years old, just under 3, till they go off to kindergarten. And then we have an after-school program as well.
Oh. So the school, is that directly associated with the church, or do they just use the building? How's that work?
No, it's a ministry of our church.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
Same tax ID number and everything.
So do you oversee that as well?
No, I have a director, school director, who's credentialed and knowledgeable and all those kinds of things.
Okay,
Yeah.
Wonderful. And then the after-school program, what's that look like?
Yeah, so it's kindergarten up to about 3rd grade, I think, and the kids come to after school. Currently, we're just utilizing the school across the street. They just come, and we have a couple of teachers, and they help them with their homework and snacks, and have some activities for them until their parents come and get them.
That's great.
And then during this week is vacation, spring vacation. The kids are there with us all day. Yeah, so.
So you're probably glad to get out for a couple hours.
Yeah, always glad to get out.
Very nice. Do you have any other? It sounds like a full life. Do you have any other jobs currently, though?
No jobs. I do a lot of other ministry things. I'm on the board of directors at the Council of Churches. That keeps me busy as well. And then I do ministry to hikers. So
a ministry to hikers.
Yeah, which is a little odd because we don't have any mountains on the Cape, so I have to drive to get there. But
oh, okay. So it's not. Well, you can hike for a long distance. It doesn't have to be uphill.
True,
right,
that's true. You could a rail trail or one of those kinds of things. Yep.
It's a long walk, is really what that's called.
Correct.
So, all right, give me an overview. What's a ministry to hikers? It's very unique. I've never heard that before.
Yeah. So what we've discovered is people who are enthusiasts, not just your couple of times a year hikers, but folks who are out kind of every weekend or who take large sections of time off of work and hike long distances. What I found is probably somewhere around 3/4 of those would describe being outdoors as a spiritual experience. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm working to do is make that connection for them that it's naturally a spiritual experience because they're experiencing the Creator, because it's His creation. So really just hoping to make that connection that it's not, that experience they're feeling is a piece of God.
Yeah. And
just an encouragement to continue exploring God just like they do nature.
Yeah, instead of worshiping the tree, how about the one who created the tree,
Correct.
right? That's
correct.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So I do that through either hike the trail and spend the night at common camping areas, or set up on the side of the trail and resource hikers with food or water or a place to sit down out of the sun, and just strike up conversation.
Oh, okay. Very nice. A casual ministry. I like it.
Yeah.
And you get to do something you like, I bet.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Okay. I did notice online that you're on the board of the Council of Churches of Cape Cod.
Yep.
I've never heard of that group.
Okay.
What is it, and what does it do?
Yeah, it's an ecumenical group, and their mission is to be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. So they engage in a lot of social activity. So what got me involved with them, they have a program to feed anybody who's hungry. So it used to be hosted at Calvary Baptist Church on West Main Street, but they burned down quite a few years ago. And that ministry had nowhere to go. So the Council of Churches approached our church and said, hey, can you host it there? At the time, it was just a temporary measure. That's how I discovered about them. But they do things like they run the baby center in town. That's in the Federated Church. There's a food pantry. So a lot of meeting social needs in the name of Jesus Christ. And so their goal is to really gather any ecumenical, any church to help be a part of that. So
to reach out to the community for a felt need, and then try to, kind of like the ministry of the hikers, try to show them where Christ fits into that.
Exactly.
Wonderful. How long have you been on Cape Cod?
I moved to the Cape in 2003, beginning of 2003. So initially was in Falmouth for 3 years as a youth pastor. And now I've been in Hyannis for it'll be 15 years in October that I've been here. So 18 years about.
Where were you doing the youth pastoring?
Heritage Christian Church in Falmouth.
Is that the one that has a school attached to it as well?
Used to.
Used to,
yeah.
Okay. All right, so you've been here coming up on 20 years, and do you like living on Cape Cod?
It's terrible. No, I'm just kidding. It's the worst place ever to live.
Yeah, no. It's a leading question, right? And like, come on, who's going to say no?
My peers joke around like, oh, it must be terrible having to minister on Cape Cod.
Yeah.
Like I get to vacation every day or something. And so there are unsaved people on the Cape too.
That's right.
So
it is a mission field.
It is, but no, we've thoroughly enjoyed it. All my kids were raised here. They're all adults now, but they all grew up here on the Cape. So,
what is your favorite part, or one of your favorite parts about living on Cape Cod?
I think one of my favorite. I'm a New Englander through and through. So I lived in South Carolina for a decade. Really missed New England, just the old world charm, quaint things, those kinds of things. I actually, to be honest, my wife and I, we actually missed the, I don't really actually know what to call it, but like New Englanders have this chip on their shoulder a bit, like, in South Carolina, everybody's always sweet to you, and you can never tell if they like you or not, because they're just always sweet.
Okay.
Here, if somebody doesn't like you, they just tell you. Like, they tell you to go,
Yeah.
whatever. And the first time somebody was mean to us, we actually were happy. We were like, wow, it's so good to be home. So I know that sounds a little strange, but
no, well, I understand it. Yeah, if someone says go smell yourself, you're like, okay, I understand. You don't want to hang out with me. Okay, I get it.
Exactly.
But so you don't have to pretend. No, I did notice you go to other parts of the country. You don't know, especially as for Christians, you don't know are they on your side or not. Just because they have a bumper sticker, that says got a fish on it or something, you just don't know. Around here, you know.
Yeah, you do. And I found in other parts of the country, Christianity was a bit like Catholicism here. Like, I've been there, done that, but I don't necessarily live that way. And so that was, for us, was a bit of a surprise having lived up here before. But so it was good to be back. I love the quaintness. I love the slower pace on the Cape compared to the rest of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about Western Mass, never lived there, but and I love the ocean. I grew up around the water. A good friend of mine, we'd go sailing often, sleep on the boat, that kind of stuff. So really enjoy being near the water too.
Okay, and then so a favorite beach or favorite restaurant? How about that, Nathan?
Favorite beach and restaurant? Depends, I think, as far as at night with family, Old Silver Beach in Falmouth with the sun setting over the beach and just the sandy bottoms as far as you can go. That's just a beautiful, very beautiful spot. Man, restaurants are a tough one. A new favorite of mine right now is Perry Lima Cafe on Main Street in Hyannis. He's a Christian guy. I'm shouting out for him to go check out his business, but he's some really great Brazilian, Cape Verdean food, and a nice guy who loves the Lord. So
Nice.
that's been a favorite recently.
And where are we going to stop now?
Yeah, now a little cafe called Chez Antoine. He's a Belgian guy, and we connected because I spent a month in Belgium. And so when he opened, I went in, and he's authentic. I mean, it's real authentic Belgian stuff. And we just hit it off, and I love his drinks and coffees and whatnot. So
I saw online pastries, though. Am I getting a pastry?
there are pastries in there.
Right.
Yes, there are.
I
You
think
can
we
get
have
pastries.
to, right? All right, so what am I eating here?
It's a macaron. I'm not sure which flavor you got.
Oh, that's good. I really thought it was going to be hard. It's super soft, like a brownie cookie thing. I like it. So you said you were just with a pastor at this place today.
Yes.
You get together with other pastors a lot?
I do. I find getting together with other pastors is extremely important. When I first came to the Cape and pastoring the church, most of our churches are small. Most churches are fortunate if they can actually even hire their pastor full time. But that being said, most churches only have a single employee, and that's the pastor. So it can be a lonely place all week long, working by yourself. And then really you're ministering to people. So your Sunday morning activity most of the time is with people who are in a state of need. So pastors just need a place to talk to other pastors. And in a larger church context, maybe if you're in another part of the country, you have that in-house. You can chat with other staff pastors or whatnot. But we just don't have that on the Cape. So it was one of those things that really helped me especially as a new pastor coming.
So there's a loneliness to it. Then there's also, only pastors can know what other pastors are going through.
Yeah.
And can confide in, because you really don't want to just be spreading other people's stuff to just anybody. You gotta, I need help with a congregant or someone's in their struggles. And someone else to help lift up your arms, so to speak, right? That's great.
And just friendship and camaraderie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think one of the hard parts of pastoring is you at any point a congregation member can say, you know what, I need to change my life, and they just walk away. And unfortunately, that happens often enough with pastors. They invest their heart and soul into a relationship, and people just walk away. And so sometimes you have to have conversations with people who that dynamic isn't there, such as other pastors. They're not just going to walk away from your congregation, so to speak. So, it's a peer group.
It's a peer group.
Yeah.
It's a needed peer group. I've got enough pastor friends and family in my life that I know that to be true.
Yeah.
I'm glad you get that. I hope that one of the things this YouTube show can show to other people, other pastors maybe, is maybe I should reach out some more, and because they might be feeling lonely or hurt or whatever, or just need someone to talk to. Good. I'm glad you do that.
It's a great point you make. I think if anything, if anyone's watching this who's not a pastor, people assume that pastors get invited out all the time, and you say, oh, they're probably busy. But what I tell folks is the majority of my invites are to places of ministry where something's required of me. Very rarely do I get invited to celebrations. So, graduations, birthday parties, somebody's celebrating a moment, they got promoted at work, whatever that is. Like,
Right.
Your pastor would love to be a part of those celebrations.
Yeah. All right, if you were going to get a day off and you just needed to do, you needed to take a break from life, what would that look like for you? You just find some peace somewhere around here. Where would you go? What would you do?
For me, it would depend on time of the year, because winters on the Cape are, pretty.
Yeah, let's go. It's a nice day.
Okay, it's a nice day. So I have a little 12-foot aluminum boat with a tiny engine on the back. I go to Barnstable Harbor and tool around. Sometimes I'll drop a line and go fishing. Sometimes I'll take it over to Sandy Neck, put it up on the beach and walk around. Just a beautiful, beautiful spot. Not a lot of people. For me, a quiet day involves not a lot of people.
Yeah.
That would be enjoyable. I just connect with God in the outdoors. So a nice walk, a nice ride, something in a boat, those kinds of things.
Boat, fish, walk, outdoors. Okay.
Yes. Like my wife and I, on a Sabbath morning for us, a Sabbath would be maybe get up, go to a coffee shop, grab coffee and a pastry together, and then I go, do my thing and spend some time outdoors. So
Nice.
any of those things.
So a glimpse at your Facebook page got me an idea that you might like to travel.
I do like to travel.
All right. So tell me your favorite place you've ever traveled to in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Yep.
Glacier National Park in Montana.
All right, give me a picture of what that looked like.
Glacier National Park in Montana is, I don't know, I'll use my words, it's like being in the throne room of God. It's just high peaks, 14,000 foot mountains, waterfalls, glaciers, wildlife like eagles and grizzly bears and mountain goats, and it's just otherworldly. It's amazing. I think I spent a week in Glacier, and I think for the first 3 days, the muscles in my face hurt from smiling.
Wow.
It just, yeah. I'm sure it's not that way in the middle of wintertime, but I was there at the beginning of September, so it was beautiful.
Okay. All right, I'll put that on the list, apparently. My wife sees this video, she's like, we're going.
You have to.
I'm going to be there.
It's a must-see.
All right. And is in the U.S. again, is there any place that you would still like to travel to?
Oh, yeah. I would love to see the national parks farther west, like Yosemite National Park, Zion National Park.
Where the sequoias are?
Those huge trees. Somewhere I was told I'd been there when I was like 5 years old, but I don't remember any of that. So.
No, and as a kid, everything looks huge to you, right? So
yeah, right.
Now you get to put it in real perspective.
Right.
Okay, same two questions, but outside the U.S. Where have you been that you loved, and where do you still want to go?
Wow, outside. I've been to so many places. I've been to Europe. I've been to Russia and Latvia. I've been to the Holy Land. I've been to Africa. I've been to South America.
Okay. All right, well, I'll pause you for a second. Is this for missions trips or just because you love to travel?
Initially start off as missions trips, but then love to travel.
Okay.
So there's just, I think what's difficult in this question is different parts of the world have their allure for different reasons. And so it's hard to,
Okay, so my wife and I are going to go overseas somewhere. Where should we go? First trip overseas.
First trip overseas. Well, you have to, if your first trip overseas, you should visit some place that's friendly to Americans. That's a first.
I agree. That should be a first and last for me. I've been to Hungary. I've been to some places myself, but if you, as a couple, where would we go to have fun? And they're friendly to Americans. Where do you think that would be?
I think France was one of my favorites.
Okay.
I've been to France twice, once with my uncle and then once with my son. And both times were very fun experiences. The French get a bad rap for being, not liking Americans, and there might be some truth, but we didn't really experience much of it. Nice little, especially as a couple, there's nice little bistros in towns, and then when you get outside, like in the Provence region, where there's like vineyards and little small towns on hills, and it's just in the history there. If you love history, you can go to like the Roman aqueducts and old Roman theaters and
cool.
France.
So if they're a little rude to you, you'll just feel like you're at home in New England. Then.
Exactly. I felt right at home.
Okay, perfectly. All right. And then where else do you want to go in the world?
I have never seen Asian countries, so I've never been to like China or Japan or Korea or Thailand or I'd love to visit and experience some of those cultures, because to me the joy of traveling is scenery, history, and culture, people, and getting to experience, and for different reasons, you know. So I'd love to. I am going to Peru in August.
Oh, what's that for?
It's ministry, but I'm going to try to tag on. I'm going to try to hike Machu Picchu. You know, because I like to hike.
Yeah.
So.
Why not?
Yeah.
All right. So tell us about your growing up years. Your family origin. Where was all that? How was that?
Yeah. My dad was in the Navy, so in the early years they traveled around a lot. So I was born in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. Found ourselves in Florida. My parents separated when I was very young, under 2. And then, you know, the separation must have been difficult because I didn't see, my mom and my dad didn't want anything to do with each other, for the longest, and so I didn't actually see my dad, or really get to know my dad, until I was an adult. So all of my formative early years in life, I was raised by a single mom. I know my dad now, but then I didn't. And we lived most of our years in Connecticut, with a small stint in California when my mom was in school. So my mom found Jesus when I was very young. I was probably 3 or 4. And so I was raised in the church, and my mom fell hard for Jesus. Church wasn't just something we added to our life, it was our life. And so I was in church at least, minimum, 3 times a week. And then if there was special stuff going on, it was more. So grew up in and around the church. And because of that, really, there was a lot of pastors in my life who became father figures to me during different seasons, and I'm almost positive that's why I'm a pastor today. I'm going to turn right here.
Okay. So you thinking you're a pastor today because of the past male pastors that stepped in as sort of a father figure to you?
Yeah. When I was really young, he took me camping with his son, so the 3 of us, or sometimes his wife too, the 4 of us would tool around in northwestern Connecticut, camp, and I think that's probably why I found my love of the outdoors too.
Wow. Mentoring then.
Yeah, and I think at the time, I'm not sure any of them would have articulated, and we need to mentor Steve. It was just, hey, here's a kid without a father figure, dad presence, let's just invite him along. And in that, there's quite a few men in the church who, in formative years of my life, came alongside me, my mom, at different periods of time, and just invested into me. So I think for those reasons, I really enjoyed the church as a young person.
I love that. I mean, whether they call it mentoring or not, they said, hey, we're going. Come with us. That's awesome.
I really think that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I think we make it complicated, like, I don't have a program or a plan for this. I don't, what author am I going to read who's going to tell me how to do this? I don't feel qualified or good enough for any of those kinds of pieces. And I think what I observed was they just invited me along.
Yeah.
Like, hey, come with us. And that was, and
I hope people hear that. I hope they hear, just invite people along. You're going to say, I don't have the perfect marriage. I'm not the best dad. Who am I to be a mentor? Just invite them along.
Exactly.
So much better than maybe the situation they're currently in.
No one's perfect. I guess for whoever's listening to this, guess what? Your pastor's not perfect either.
Oh no. Is that right?
And even I know I do. I don't know about other pastors, but sometimes I have to remind myself that God doesn't use me because of a perfection in my life. He uses me in spite of it.
Yeah.
So if I'm ever, anxious to do something, or I don't feel qualified enough, or any of those kinds of things, I just have to remind myself, like, well, that's not why God is using me.
Yeah.
So anyway, just anybody. I think if everybody came alongside somebody, it'd be a different story
It
altogether.
definitely would be. All right. So the very pastory question is the next one.
Okay.
What is your favorite, most concise way to explain the gospel?
My favorite, most concise way. For me, I know this sounds a little, I don't know, maybe it's an interesting response, but for me, it's actually situational.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a very relational guy, I listen to people, and then I pick which approach to share it based on the conversation and where they're at in life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm outdoors with people who are outdoor enthusiasts, who make comments about the outdoors is their church, or they enjoy, they feel something spiritual about being outside, or those kinds of responses, I say, well, why do you come? Most people want to escape to the outdoors because they want to get away from people. And so just identifying that there's a lot of chaos in the world. I say, I just want to get away from the chaos. And then I usually ask them a question. I said, do you ever find yourself contributing to the chaos?
Uh-huh.
And if people are honest, they'll say, yeah, occasionally I contribute to the chaos. So then I might joke around a little bit, like, so some people are trying to get away from you, right? Like, yeah, those kinds of things. And and then I said, do you know that it's possible for you to live in the chaos and not be affected by the chaos? You can live above the chaos. And that just opens up a conversation around, well, it's Jesus Christ who comes into our lives, who allows us to live above and not be affected by the chaos. So, I don't know if that's an answer to a concise...
No, it's good. It's very directed to you and your ministry and how you like, so it's great.
Yeah.
Relational. I just, I always want to I always want to learn from pastors. How do you like to articulate the gospel? What's the fastest way you would do it if you only had a few minutes? What's your favorite way if you had longer times? Just anything like that, just to hear the gospel. Yeah, so
I think a favorite analogy I like to give is this. And it's probably not a good, Christian thing, but we're not really, if we're presenting the gospel, we're not presenting it to Christians,
right? Yeah.
Right? So I usually say, have you ever played poker? I said, yeah, and you're dealt a certain hand, right? And you bet, you take risks based off of the hand that you have in front of you. I said, at some point, you're dealt a hand and you look at that and you say, this is the best it's ever going to get. I'm never going to get a better hand than this. So I'm all in, and you push all your chips to the center. I'm going to live or die off of this decision, right? We've all seen the movies. Maybe you've never done it in a game if you've played yourself, but you've seen it in the shows or movies. And this, yeah. I said, that's what it's like living for Jesus Christ. He's the best hand you're ever going to get. And you have to be all in.
And why wouldn't you want to be all in, right?
Why wouldn't you? This is the best hand. This is the best it's ever going to get.
Nice.
And so the recognition of it doesn't get any better than this, and I'm gonna risk my entire life off of this. I'm all in, win, lose, or draw. Like, this is it. And that's what it means to follow Jesus Christ and invite him into your life. And of course, people can ask, well, why do you think that's the best it's going to be? And then you can have conversations about who Jesus is and those kinds of things. But for me, that's a poker analogy.
I love it. Yeah. I do play poker, and I have seen some of those movies, and it's so intense. All right, I'm all in.
Like, you're risking it all. Don't you want to hold back something? You're like, no, risk it all. Like, that's what it means to live for Jesus Christ.
To totally live for Christ, absolutely.
Totally. All your chips in. You're not holding anything back for in case this goes wrong. It's just all in.
So you're not just talking to non-Christians. You're preaching to the Christians. The Christians who say, "Oh yeah, I'm a Christian."
Yeah.
But they're not all in.
Right.
And how long did it take us to get all in? And are we even all in? Is the Lord going to explain something else to us? And
right.
go, you haven't been all in either. And I love that analogy.
There are many times I have folded and said, no, not on that one. Like, what do you mean? So. I think that's just, there's the parable, been reading through the parables of Jesus, and there's the parable of the treasure found in the field, or the parable of the pearl. Yeah. And that's where somebody stumbles upon this treasure, whether it's the pearl or in the field, and they realize this is the most valuable thing I could find, and I need to be willing to give up everything else in order to obtain that. Because that's where life is at. And Jesus said, hey, that's what it means to find the kingdom of God. It's like the merchant who went and sold all he had to obtain the one pearl. And I think it's just a reminder, like, that Jesus does offer the best that this life has to offer.
Are you into any YouTube or TV shows, movie series, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm a sucker for all things outdoors. So, like Alone series. I love watching Alone.
Okay, so what's the plot on this?
So Alone is where they drop people off. They allow them 10 items. They can, like an axe, a tarp, whatever. Okay. They're allowed 10 things. They drop them off in the middle of the wilderness where there's grizzly bears and panthers and that kind of stuff. And I forget how many contestants. I think there's 10 or so. And it's who can last the longest. And whoever lasts the longest wins, I forget what it is, like $500,000 or something. So it's just...
So you're going to go on the show?
No. No. I wouldn't make it simply... Honestly, like, the first thing I miss is my wife. Like, I hit the 2-week mark. At the 2-week mark, it's just like, okay, I'm done with wherever I am. If I'm traveling, if I'm staying in hotels, it doesn't matter. After 2 weeks, I need to see my wife. So there you go, honey. That's a shameless plug for our marriage.
That's fantastic. If you were to recommend every person who watches this video has to read a book other than the Bible, what book would you?
Oh, that's terrible.
I know. I figured you probably got a list of 20.
I do. Like books that have, like, impacted me.
Yeah, we can change
greatly.
The question.
Yeah, let's do it. Like, books that have impacted me that are huge. So, like, Reggie McNeil's book, A Work of Heart, was huge for leadership for me. Because he really leaned into, for me, the first time, that says, hey, leadership starts in the heart. It's not a skill set. And skills can be learned, but you have to have the right heart. Yeah, I'm impacted by biographies. So, like, Eric Metaxas wrote the biography of, like, Bonhoeffer, and I just finished reading.
It's a huge book.
Oh, I loved it. It's like 700 pages. I read it in, like, a couple of weeks.
Wow. What do you think the body of believers at Faith Assembly does well in regards to loving God, loving others, and then add to that, what would you like to add to the list that you'd like to be known for, a hallmark for, that sort of thing?
I think that what I'm really proud of our churches is their authenticity. So when what you see on Sunday morning is who they are. There's no show. There's no... Well, I mean, everybody puts on their best when they're around a group of people and social, but there's no... It's not fake. I think some, folks who come and visit will use the words like, man, your fellowship feels pure, or authentic, or real, or those kinds of terminology. And I know what they're driving at, that we're just a group of people. What you see is what you get. There's nothing hidden. So, and I think that's of huge value, because I've had different church experiences in my life, and in some of those churches, what you saw on Sunday morning was not what was reality the other 6 days of the week. So I think we do that really well. Plus, we open up our building to as much stuff as possible. We give our stuff away, so to speak. Even though we're a small church, we want to see God do big things, and so the collaboration with other bodies of Christ and working together and those kinds of things, I think we do really well. What I'd like us to be known for, I really want to see individuals empowered and understand and know how God has created them and using that in their life. So my big thing that I say is God wants to use you in the places you already live, work, and play. You don't have to change who you are, become this super Christian or any of those kinds of things. Just lean into what He's already given you and where He's already put you. And like, your workplace is your church or your ministry, your community, where you live, your neighborhood is your mission field. Like, start to view these places like that. And so that's how I'd love to see our church, that we're a community of people who are encouraging and empowering one another to be that outside of Sunday morning. I think that's really where I would love to see us be.
Well, that's a wonderful thing to aspire to, and I think every Christian should be there, right? But I'm glad as the lead pastor there, you're pushing that on your congregation. I'd love to hear all the pastors pushing that. Be God's salt and light everywhere around the Cape, and let's get this revival going. Wouldn't that be awesome?
It's only going to happen when we get outside the four walls of the church. Like, Sunday morning is super important. It's a time where believers come together and encourage and corporately worship and pray and hear from God, but like, that shouldn't be the only thing God-like that's happening in your life. Yeah. That should just be your well, so to speak. Do
you have any God stories? Those when God shows up in a way in your life and your ministry, it's just like, that's such a God thing, and we just can all be encouraged by hearing about it.
Yeah. I'll share a couple, but years ago when I first came to the church, we had to do some things financially, creatively, consolidate loans and such because of just the financial picture it was in. And so felt like God did some really great things. We were able to refinance, and we didn't think it was going to happen, and all these kinds of pieces. And then right after that, through various things, won't get into all the dirty laundry of it all, but just our school took a hit, and our enrollment dropped significantly to where our monthly expenses were $8,000 more than our income every month. And so it was really, really bad. I was getting paid probably every other week instead of every week. Sometimes we wouldn't make payroll till 3 hours before I handed checks out, and just, it was a very tense and crazy time of the year and season. And I can remember trying to come up with different plans and strategies and how we're going to get out of this. And at this point, I'm a fairly new pastor. I'm probably less than 2 years in, and we're sinking fast. No plan is working. How do you turn that around? So I devised this plan I thought was good. My leadership thought it was terrible. So they encouraged me to pray more, and I'm like, what do you think I've been doing? It was just, it was a tough season. Mm-hmm. And so we couldn't pay a lot of the church bills, so naturally we're getting hounded by collectors. I'm only getting paid every other month, so now it's the point now where I can't afford to pay my mortgage. And I was scheduled to go away Thanksgiving to visit my wife's family, and I had scheduled somebody to come in and speak so I could go away. And my entire family got sick except me. So I remember I have 3 kids, my wife and 3 kids, all laying in the bed together, like feeling nauseous and fevers and all kinds of stuff, and I feel perfectly fine. And I'm sitting at the table Thanksgiving Day, miserable and depressed. I'm like, okay, this is, I can't pay my mortgage, the church can't pay its bills, my family's sick, I can't even go away, I'm like angry with God, and what am I gonna do? You know, going down in a flaming heap of whatever. So Sunday I show up at church because our plans got canceled. I didn't cancel the guest speaker, so I just attended church. And at the, very few visitors, but there was a couple of people there. There was a couple there whose son was in the Coast Guard, and they were visiting, they lived in Alaska, and they were visiting their son for Thanksgiving. They just decided, hey, we go to an Assemblies of God church in Alaska, let's just go to an Assemblies of God church. So it's the only reason they picked our church to come. I'm standing at the door saying goodbye to people as they're leaving, and this guy walks by and he hands me this piece of paper, and he just says these words to me: God knows. And I'm like, God knows. Okay, I don't know what that means. I put the piece of paper in my pocket. I said thank you. He moves on. I never see the guy again. He leaves. We're locking up church, to go home, and I'm like, oh, that guy gave me something. I should look. I reach in my pocket and I open it up, and it's a check, and it's made out to me personally, and it's made out for the exact amount of my personal mortgage.
Like to the penny type of thing? Is that what you're
so
me?
Like if I tithed off of it,
yeah.
Which I did, I practiced tithing. If I tithed off of it, it was like within $1. And I'm like, that can only be God. This guy's from Alaska. He doesn't know anything about us. I didn't make our personal finances public to anybody, not even my leadership team.
Yep.
He had no clue. God told him to do something. He did something. And at that point, I was like, God's with us. And it was just the encouragement I needed to kind of get out of my own head and hear from God. So we made this statement, we're not going anywhere. God sent us here to revive a church. We're going to continue to meet here until they lock the doors and tell us we can't come in the building anymore. And that following Monday, all of a sudden it was like the water faucet turned on. Our enrollment in their school just started. 2 to 3 families sometimes a day we were enrolling. And within 6 weeks, 2 to 2 months, our enrollment was back up. We were paying our bills.
Wow.
Just amazing.
God knows. Have you made bumper stickers and
God
t-shirts
knows.
that say
No.
Man, that would be.
It was just like, God knows. I was like, and any other time when he said it to me, I'm like, oh please. I've grown up in church my whole life. Yeah, I know God knows. Right? Because it's like a cliche.
Of course.
God's got you. I'm praying for you. All those kinds of pieces.
Yeah.
But this was backed up by holy smokes, God really does know, even down to how much I owe on my mortgage. So a recent one, when I was doing hiking ministry, I was hiking the northern presidentials in New Hampshire. I was on a 5-day journey, and at that period of time, there's lots of thru hikers who are hiking the entire length of the trail. And so one night, I come across this group, 3 or 4 of them, and they're hiking together, and we're about to. So I sent up my tent kind of near theirs, and we're having a conversation. And two guys and a girl, and they've eaten dinner. We're just kind of chatting, and some whiskey gets pulled out of a backpack, and they're passing around whiskey, and they offer me some, and I'm like, no thanks, I appreciate it. No big deal. Next day we get up, we're talking about where we're gonna go. I tell them my hiking routine. Next day I'm hiking, and I'm eating lunch at one of the huts up on the top of the peak, and I look up and they come in, and the girl that they're hiking with is sick. She's she's nauseous, vomiting. And they're like, yeah, she was like this yesterday, but she felt better last night. We don't know what's going on. So I said, wow, I'm sorry to hear that. Anyway, I move on, hike. I stop where I'm going to spend for the night. Now, they're through hikers. They're much better shape than I am. Their goals were press on. But they happen to show up where I'm tenting as well for the night. So I'm inquiring why they didn't keep pushing on. So, well, she's gotten really sick. So we figured we'd stop here for the night. So we get in a conversation like, hey, if you're still sick tomorrow, you need to come off the mountain because you can't be up here for several days vomiting, you know. So we say, well, we'll talk about it in the morning. Then they break out the weed, and they're smoking weed, and they offer me some. I said, no thanks, it's not my thing. They're very respectful. They smoked away from me, you know, those kinds of things. Still, they have no idea what I do. We're all just people hiking. Mm-hmm. So the next day I hiked to the top of Mount Washington, and I'm hanging out there, and they come in again, and the girl's sick again. Mm-hmm. And so I said, listen, my truck's at the bottom of the hill. Take a shuttle down, I'll bring you to the hospital. I'll cut my hiking trip a day short. And so she says, fine, I think that's a good idea. We take the shuttle down, we're in my truck, and we're driving to the hospital, and she's unsure of where she wants to go. She just wants to go to the walk-in clinic. And I'm like, I think that's a bad idea. She goes, listen, I just need medicine to stop the vomiting so I can get back on the trail. Mm-hmm. I said, but what if it's more than that? They can't handle it. Then they'll send you to the hospital. And it finally comes out that she's concerned about telling her parents. I'm like, well, why are you concerned? She's like, well, I'm not sure my parents can afford the medical bill, those kinds of things. I said, well, what do your parents do? And she says, my mom runs a daycare, and my dad's a pastor. And I chuckle because she's about the age of my daughter. Mm-hmm. And I chuckle, and I said, that's funny. I'm a pastor. And you saw the last 48 hours of her activities and conversations with me and all this kind of stuff, all of a sudden all line up, and she's like, you were with us while we were drinking and smoking, and you didn't say anything. And I just said, well, it's not my business, right? And that just launched us into conversations about things she was struggling with as from, not from her dad, but just the theology of that particular denomination, of her struggles with the church in general. So I dropped her off at the hospital. She went in, and she actually had something wrong, and she had an infection on her back that she couldn't see, and it was actually that was causing her to vomit. Oh. So they had to go in and clean it out and give her medicine. And the doctor had told her, if you had been on the mountain for another day, you would have had to been rescued. Like, this was not going to get better on its own. And so I picked her up. I dropped her off at a hotel so she could get a room. I went to a campground where I was staying, picked her up for breakfast next morning, and just having another conversation, waiting for her friends to catch up. And I said to her, I hope it doesn't escape you of the fact that God knows you so well and what your needs are, that he sent a pastor to take care of you in your most vulnerable moment. And she was like, yeah, I was thinking about that. Mm. And so to me, that's a God moment in the sense that here's a young girl whose dad's in ministry, and my kids and any pastor's kids understand the pressure of being a kid and your parents are in ministry, and kind of running from that and kind of just, I'm out from underneath parents' eyes. I can do what I want, when I want, how I want. And then realizing that God is even with you in those moments as well. Mm-hmm. To the fact that when she was in need, God had me there to help take care of that need. And it was just, you could tell it was such a God moment as she made the connection that, man, I may be kind of hiding or running from God, but God hasn't abandoned me. So it's just a really cool God moment, being used that way. So
Oh, I love that for you, that you get to have that encouragement. Like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you for using me, Lord. And love it for her that she can walk away from the Lord, but he'll just send someone to meet her there. That's awesome.
Right. You're not getting away from me that easy,
That's
you know?
right. That's right. That's great. Well, my friend, I'm going to call you friend because this has been fun.
That's awesome.
I
Thank you.
appreciate this. You doing this interview, like I said earlier, that you didn't even know who I was, and you do this interview, but we're brothers.
That's right.
You know, I appreciate
right.
it. Thank you so much.